Mindset number 2. We're talking about the counterintuitive path to financial freedom. And this mindset is called this, Clay. They aren't making any more of you.
Yeah, I'm going to read this notable quote to you again from the book Scale. And he says, putting in lots of extra hours may indeed spark a short spurt of growth. But eventually this caps out because you can't simply work any harder, nor can you personally produce any more. If your business depends on you, you don't own a business. You have a job. And it's the worst job in the world because you're working for a lunatic. I'm going to read these two notable quotables to you one more time. Okay, so one is, putting in lots of extra hours may indeed spark a short spurt of growth, but eventually this caps out because you simply can't work any harder, nor can you personally produce anymore. That's from Scale, okay? That's from the book Scale. Awesome book. Everyone should buy that book. It's so good, so good. Now, the second one is, if your business depends on you, you don't own a business, you have a job. And it's the worst job in the world because you're working for a lunatic. That's Michael Gerber.
Break it down for us, Clay. These are deep.
Well, what I'm saying is really what you have to do is you have to realize it's admirable you're putting in extra hours. And for a time, you need to do that. When you're starting a business and it's just you have to do all the work. But eventually, you've got to understand, like, you can't make any more of you. You cannot work any more hours. You just can't. And so the example I give you is I think about a contractor I worked with years ago. And the contractor was absolutely phenomenal at doing building, like just build anything. And so people were like, hey, could you build, a door for me? Could you build windows for me? Could you help me fix my roof? Could you help me? Could I hire you to remodel my kitchen? Could you remodel my deck? And he's growing his business. And I talked to the guy. I've known the guy for a long time. And I said, hey, eventually you're going to need to hire somebody. And he's like, no, it's so much more profitable if it's just me. So he's growing. And literally he's had like probably 15 jobs now going. And they're all like, hey, can we hire you to fix our attic? We want to add an addition onto our house. Can we hire you? And he's got a waiting list now. And I'm not exaggerating. He was over $1 million of revenue coming in for the year. His profits were about $100,000. He's making $100,000 a year doing what he loves. And again, I'm like, dude, you really, really need to, at some point, hire other people to do the job. And he says, no, I'm making over $100,000 a year. I love what I do. And I'm not exaggerating. He got sick and went to the hospital.
Oh, my.
And he couldn't work for about 4 weeks. And 3 of the accounts, I think it was 3, maybe it was 2, sued him and said, we don't really care what your problem is. You didn't deliver. And we have family coming in from town, or we have this that needs to be done, or our business needs to have this done. And they all sued him. So he had multiple people, I think it was 2 or 3 that sued him. But not only that, he couldn't make any income. So he lost everything. So here he was as a guy, mid-40s, actually late 40s, lost everything. So he comes back, and I talked to him a couple years later, and he says, hey, that whole bankruptcy deal wasn't fun. I need to figure out a way to do it again, but not have this problem. Could you help me kind of build these systems, this time around? And we worked with him, and he did very well. And it's just a thing of like, you have to build systems. I think of a missionary I knew years ago, and he started a home building company. He's a missionary. And his old goal was, I'm going to make money as a home builder, and I'll donate all of the money to the mission, so that way I don't need donations. He wanted to be able to be self-supporting as a missionary.
Sure.
And same scenario, except in reverse. He says, I am going to build the system so I can spend all my time doing ministry, and the company will work without me. So I'm going to build all these systems and checklists so I can spend all my time doing ministry and 0 of my time building. And he was probably working 20, 30 hours a week building, and probably 20, 30 hours a week in the ministry. And over time, he just kept building checklists and systems and documentations and processes. And last time I saw him, his ministry was in Brazil, doing very, very well. And all I can say is that he was working, he said, about 5 hours a week total on his business.
Amazing.
And the rest of the time he was spending working in the ministry. But the business was earning the money needed to fund the ministry. So you got to view it as your business is just, it's a machine that funds your life. That's all it is.
So did he build the checklist before he launched the business, or did he realize halfway through his ministry that he needed the checklist? How do you go about it, discerning like the first guy that went to the hospital versus the other guy that did it successfully? How do you do that?
Well, the second guy was able to build his business in a way where he was delivering results, but he was like, man, he knew enough to reach out. So he reached out to me and he's like, hey,
there you go.
I feel like every time I meet with a customer, they ask me the same questions. I'm like, yeah, you should make a checklist for your sales presentation and then teach someone else to do it. So the first thing we did, we taught someone else to sell. So then when the phone would ring, he no longer had to answer it because there was a script. And then when the person went to the appointment, he no longer had to give the presentation because someone else could do it. There was a script, there was a checklist, there was a sales book. Then the next step was he needed to hire someone who could manage all of the contractors. Then the next step was and he just kept taking away different steps and trying to delegate each separate step.
So they're focusing on achieving financial freedom. That's the goal, to have the time freedom with the financial freedom. So if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to email us at info@thrive15.com. We're here to serve you and see you succeed.